What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Friday, May 23rd, 2025, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now it is 16:24 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from Eastern Europe and from the Middle East. So, in a statement earlier today, Finland's Ministry of Defense reported that two military aircraft of the Russian Air Force are suspected of violating Finnish airspace today over the Gulf of Finland in the eastern Baltic Sea, with the incident said to have occurred off the coast of Porvoo. An investigation into the violation is being led by the Finnish border guard. So, major breaking news. Two Russian aircraft flew into Finnish territorial airspace. And if you remember, just over a week ago, the Russian fighter jet that flew into Estonia's airspace. And then earlier this year, Russian fighter jets flew into Polish airspace. Okay, so clearly Russia is testing the limits. This is absolutely huge news. And in a post earlier today on Truth Social, U.S. President Donald Trump announced that he will be recommending a straight 50% tariff on all goods entering the U.S. from the European Union beginning June the 1st, claiming that trade negotiations between the U.S. and EU are going nowhere. Wow. So Trump will be placing 50% tariffs on all goods coming from Europe. That is absolutely massive breaking news. And this update was sponsored by EMP Shield. Guys, EMP Shield has created a special discount just for you, the listeners of the NYPrepper channel. If you go to empshield.com and use the promo code NYPrepper, you can get 15% off your entire order. And why do you need an EMP shield? Well, this is a special device to protect your vehicle, your RV, your solar generators, your radios from an electromagnetic pulse, which could be caused by a solar flare or potentially a rogue country like North Korea detonating an electromagnetic pulse weapon over the United States that's mounted onto a satellite. So protect your vehicles, protect your RV, protect your radios, protect your generators with an EMP shield. Use my promo code NYPrepper to get 15% off. Installation is super simple. This is a veteran-owned business, 100% American-made, and the EMP shields have been tested by the military, okay? And free shipping is included to the entire continental United States. And the link and the promo code are in the description below this video. And we have reports of at least 12 people injured at the Central Station in Hamburg, Germany, following a stabbing attack carried out by a suspect who is now in police custody. 6 of the 12 injuries are said to be life-threatening, with the attack being investigated as possibly terror-related. Wow. And we have some initial reports coming in that the talks between the U.S. and Iran that have taken place today, the 5th round of talks in Italy, have broken down. We're hearing that White House Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, reportedly left the talks. Wow, that is absolutely huge news. And we had some interesting activity over Morocco last night and this morning. We had a U.S. B-52 nuclear bomber fly into Moroccan airspace, and it was hanging out there for quite some time. And this B-52 came with weapons of some kind, because when it came from the U.S., France denied this B-52 the ability to fly through French airspace. So obviously it was armed. Otherwise, France wouldn't have denied this B-52 the ability to fly through French airspace. So this is very, very unusual. And this afternoon, we have 2 nuclear war command and control planes over the United States, which is a lot for a Friday before Memorial Day weekend. And here's a closer look at that B-52. You can see it took off from Spain, from Moran Air Base, and it was looping over here just south of Casablanca. Very strange. And then we also had a lot of reconnaissance over Lithuania again last night. Here you can see a NATO AWACS plane patrolling all of Lithuania, Kaliningrad, Belarus, and Poland, doing this circle. And then we also had a private recon plane flying along the border of Kaliningrad and Lithuania. They've been flying a lot in this area over the past week or so. And then here are the two nuclear war command and control planes airborne this afternoon. You can see one took off from Offutt Air Base, did this gigantic pattern here over South Dakota and Nebraska, and then another one is just taking off from their home base in Oklahoma. And preparations for the massive military parade in Washington, D.C. for the 250th birthday of the U.S. Army on June 14th, which also happens to be the 79th birthday of President Trump, are in full swing this week at Fort Cavazos in Killeen, Texas. So we have footage coming out of Fort Cavazos showing these tanks and various types of heavy armor being loaded onto trains to go to D.C. as soldiers with the 1st Cavalry Division, 3rd Armored Corps were seen loading 28 Strykers, 28 Bradleys, 28 Abrams main battle tanks, 7 Paladin howitzers onto rail cars at Fort Cavazos. Next month's parade in D.C. is expected to be the biggest and most expensive military parade in the nation's capital city since the National Victory Celebration on June the 8th, 1991, which celebrated the conclusion of the Gulf War, with cost estimates for the parade placing it between $35 to $45 million, according to officials at the Pentagon. So a $40 million parade. The parade will also be the first to feature tracked armored vehicles on the streets of Washington, D.C. in decades, with the Department of Defense pledging to place steel plates on roads while also equipping the vehicles with track pads to prevent damage to roads and bridges along the parade route. One of the major concerns which was raised by city officials in both Washington and Arlington, Virginia. Wow. So massive parade, June the 14th. And we had 51 nuclear codes transmitted on Wednesday, which is absolutely insane. And a shooting occurred yesterday morning outside the CIA headquarters in McLean, Virginia, after an unidentified woman attempted to drive through the main gate, leading her to be shot at least once in the upper body by a security guard. That's the CIA police. The woman was transported to a nearby medical center with non-life-threatening injuries as an investigation into the shooting has been launched by the FBI. Wow, very, very concerning. And Iran's top diplomat insisted on Wednesday that Tehran will never stop enriching uranium, further underlining the Islamic Republic's red lines in negotiations with the U.S. over its rapidly advancing nuclear program. I have said it before and I repeat it again, uranium enrichment in Iran will continue with or without an agreement, Arghachi said. That's the foreign minister, according to state television. Arghachi added that Iran is currently reviewing whether to participate in the next round and when to take part in talks with the U.S. We stand against excessive demands and rhetoric at the table. Okay, so Iran is basically saying we're not going to stop enriching uranium and we're not going to sign a deal that requires us to stop doing that or to dismantle our facilities. Okay, and Israel said that one of the main issues for them in any kind of a deal with Iran is nuclear dismantlement. Okay, they won't accept anything short of complete dismantlement. So what does that mean? That means that if Iran doesn't soften their stance, Israel's going to strike. And I reported earlier in the week that the intelligence came out that Israel has begun extensive preparations to strike Iran's nuclear facilities, especially if there's some kind of a bad deal signed with the U.S. And the Houthi leader said they launched 8 ballistic missiles and drones at Israel over the past week, 3 missiles targeted the Ben Gurion airport, causing widespread disruptions and flight cancellations. And General Guralev of Russia called for the Russian army to be prepared for a large-scale war with Europe. Wow. And Russia is now introducing new nuclear-tipped air-to-air missiles as part of an overall expansion of its nuclear forces, according to an assessment from the Pentagon's Defense Intelligence Agency. Wow. And in Russia's Lipetsk Oblast, a drone strike hit a factory in Yelets responsible for producing batteries for drones. And Trump said that Putin will not end the war because Putin believes he is still winning the war. And 200 villages in the Sumy Oblast region of Ukraine have been ordered to evacuate a few days ago. And this is coming from my source on the ground in Ukraine, John Hoover. He's also a moderator in the live streams, okay? So that is a massive number of villages, and we're hearing that Russia is massing forces along the border of Sumy and Kharkiv, and they're preparing to potentially invade and take some territory. Now, yesterday, Putin announced that Russia is going to be creating a massive buffer zone along the border of Ukraine, apparently 15 to 20 kilometers wide. So they're going to make a massive defense line, essentially, along the border with Ukraine. Very interesting. And the Wall Street Journal, citing sources, reported that another round of ceasefire talks between Ukraine and Russia may take place, but this time in the Vatican. They said the talks will take place in mid-June and that a U.S. delegation will be present, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Keith Kellogg. And armored vehicles and other vehicles equipped with electronic warfare were deployed around the Kremlin the past couple of days due to massive drone attacks from Ukraine. Apparently, Russia had to shut down mobile networks across the Moscow region. And in another sign that World War III is coming, the U.S. State Department approved a sale of 1,400 GBU-39B small diameter glide bombs to Poland, according to the Pentagon Defense Agency. Wow, 1,400 glide bombs going to Poland. Poland is purchasing them. They're not getting them for free. And the number of Tu-95 strategic bombers near Ukraine has increased to 9, and they are being loaded with cruise missiles at multiple air bases. So Russia is potentially preparing for a massive strike on Ukraine in the coming days. And the former general of Ukraine's military, Valery Zaluzhny, made a comment about the war. I want to read to you what he said. He said, "Russia is waging a war of attrition since the battle for Bakhmut and will continue to do so as long as they have the resources. Stopping the war is only possible by undermining the Russian economy and inflicting significant damage on the army." He said Ukraine should not expect a miracle to restore its 1991 or 2022 borders. Speaking at the Export of Security Forum, he warned that Russia still has the capacity to strike and conduct offensive. Victory, he said, can only come through destroying Russia's ability to wage war by targeting its military and economic power. Given Ukraine's severe shortages in manpower and resources, it must focus on high-tech warfare for survival. He stressed Ukraine is not capable of another large-scale war and should not even think about it. Wow, so some very strong words there from Valery Zaluzhny. And Iran said no nuclear deal is possible if the U.S. demands an end to uranium enrichment. And the Iranian foreign minister wrote a letter to the UN Secretary General Guterres and the IAEA Director General Rafael Grossi to call on the international community to take effective preventive measures against continuation of Israel's threats, which, if unchecked, will compel Iran to take special measures in defense of their nuclear facilities and materials. Wow, absolutely insane. And the White House says a potential deal with Iran was discussed in a phone call between U.S. President Trump and Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And Axios is reporting that the Israeli Minister of Strategic Affairs and the Mossad chief will discuss the Iranian nuclear issue tomorrow with Steve Witkoff in Rome, or actually that would be today. Okay, so Mossad chief and Israeli Minister of Strategic Affairs will be speaking with Witkoff. Absolutely insane. So Israel is running out of patience, okay? They've been waiting to strike Iran for months. Trump doesn't want to do it. He wants to sign some kind of BS deal, okay, just to kick the can down the road and get it out of his hair. And Israel's not going to accept that, because if Iran gets nuclear weapons, that's a direct threat to the existence of Israel. Okay, so they will take action on their own. And 2 Israeli embassy staff members were killed, per a source familiar with the shooting, outside the D.C. Capitol Jewish Museum earlier in the week. The shooting took place in front of the museum, just behind the FBI field office and the U.S. Attorney's Office. Initial unconfirmed information seems to indicate that Elias Rodriguez was a member of Chicago's chapter of the Party for Socialism and Liberation, a communist political party. So that's the shooter. He was part of some kind of communist political party. Absolutely insane. Maybe he was a sleeper agent. And according to the Israeli ambassador, the 2 Israeli embassy staff members killed were a young couple who were about to get engaged in Jerusalem next week. The shooting occurred just after attendees were exiting the young diplomat's reception hosted by the American Jewish Committee. And the EU's top diplomat Kaja Kallas said on Wednesday it was unacceptable that the Israeli army had fired shots near a diplomatic delegation that included European officials on a visit to the West Bank. The group had been visiting a refugee camp in the Palestinian city of Jenin, but deviated from an approved route and entered an area where they were not authorized to be, Israel's foreign ministry said in a statement on social media, after which Israeli troops fired warning shots to scare them away. Any threats on diplomats' lives are unacceptable, Kallas said during a press conference Wednesday, adding that even warning shots were still shots and that those responsible should be held accountable. Wow. So the Israeli army firing warning shots towards European diplomats, okay, who in recent weeks have been really slamming Israel and were considering putting sanctions on Israel, okay? And mainland Chinese forces held a massive amphibious landing drill in the Taiwan Strait on Tuesday. 2 People's Liberation Army's 73rd Group Army exercised tactics and skills of near-shore driving and landing operations with armored amphibious vehicles on a beach on the southeast coast of Fujian province. And North Korea fired multiple unidentified cruise missiles earlier in the week. And according to a report from the Wall Street Journal, the Trump administration has directed the Pentagon to draw up a plan for the withdrawal of roughly 4,500 troops from South Korea and redeploy them to other bases across the Indo-Pacific, including Guam. The plan is reportedly being prepared for Trump as part of an informal policy review on dealing with North Korea. Wow. So Trump wants to pull out 4,500 troops from South Korea as part of a policy review on dealing with North Korea. Very interesting. I wonder if this has something to do with that phone call that Putin had with Trump on Monday. Maybe they came to some kind of an agreement that would involve the U.S. removing some troops from South Korea. And North Korea was unveiling their largest destroyer, a 5,000-ton new Navy destroyer that apparently sank in front of Kim Jong-un during the unveiling ceremony. The Supreme Leader was present for the grand unveiling of the 5,000-ton vessel at Cheongjin Shipyard on May 21st, but the ceremony took a disastrous turn when a severe mishap occurred during the launch. The event, meant to showcase the regime's prowess, descended into disarray when the launch sequence was mismanaged. Due to an error, the stern sled was released too soon, causing it to become stuck and leaving the front of the ship wedged in place. The imbalance resulted in damage to the hull and brought the entire operation to an embarrassing standstill. Kim Jong-un witnessed the debacle firsthand and did not mince words in his response. He condemned the incident as a serious accident that could not have happened, could not be tolerated, and slammed it as a criminal act caused by pure carelessness, irresponsibility, and unscientific empiricism. Wow. So someone's going to get taken out because of this mistake. And the Polish Prime Minister threatened to close the Polish border with Germany if Germany tries sending migrants to Poland. Wow. And apparently he already notified Germany of that. And a court order has halted Trump's massive layoffs of U.S. government employees. And Ukrainian forces have currently entered the Bryansk region of Russia. According to a leak from within, the Russian government is minimizing the scale of the invasion. Apparently, recon groups have advanced 80 kilometers now into Russia, and heavy fighting is continuing. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. Wanted to just show you some more flight paths. So here we have a U.S. Navy recon drone near Taiwan last night. And we had more reconnaissance earlier in the week in the Baltics, and we had this Russian National Guard plane that went to Kaliningrad. But that's pretty much it for this one, guys. I want to let you know I won't be posting any updates this weekend unless something crazy happens, but I will have my 24/7 live stream running. So until the next time, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere. And before I continue with the breaking news, I wanted to mention the sponsor for this update, which is My Patriot Supply. Guys, My Patriot Supply has brought back their $200 discount on their 3-month emergency food supply. And to get the discount, you got to go to preparewithNYPrepper.com, and the link is in the description below this video. That's preparewithNYPrepper.com to get $200 off the My Patriot Supply 3-month emergency food supply. This is freeze-dried food, so it has a 25-year shelf life, and it's all packed within 6 rugged, watertight buckets, so it doesn't take up a lot of space. You can easily fit this in a small closet in a studio apartment, and the food has all of your essential vitamins and minerals and up to 2,000 calories per day. So use the link preparewithNYPrepper.com to get the My Patriot Supply 3-month emergency food supply, 25-year shelf life for just $500. That's $200 off their normal price. So use the link in the description below this video.